And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tuesday Night Tune-Up, part of Arkansas Motorsports Magazine. Tonight, we're back in beautiful Mena, Arkansas. And tonight, we're going to be visiting with Robbie Hines, John Shoptaw, and Bruce Bush. We'll be talking about their racing careers. But to get underway tonight, we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Chambers Bank with 26 locations throughout Arkansas. One right here in Mena, Arkansas. We also want to thank Shaw Race Cars in Batesville, Arkansas. I want to say a big shout out to KR Performance Fuels, Mr. Kevin Rogers, for being a sponsor of Tuesday Night Tune-Up in Arkansas Motorsports Magazine. True Grit Auction Company up in Dardanelle, Arkansas, Arkansas's #1 online auctioneer. So if you've got an auction or looking to buy auction items, please check out True Grit Auctions up in Dardanelle. And also we want to welcome a new sponsor this week, Skyway Buick GMC of Joplin, Missouri. Appreciate the folks at Skyway for coming on board to help promote Arkansas Motorsports Magazine and Tuesday Night Tune-Up. I'll throw it over right now to our co-host Heath Tate for this past week's racing update.
No dirt track racing this past week. Went out to the drag strip, watched some guys make a few passes on Saturday. They was closed Sunday, so
Several.
there's the drag strip. Just no dirt track racing right now. No.
I think
A lot of
what about Prescott? Did they-
Prescott, yeah,
got underway
they
this
they
week?
got underway. I forgot. They did get underway, and they had a points race this weekend, I think.
So if you're a drag racing fan, be sure to check out both the Central and Prescott raceways. Now, last week you made the announcement of the Arkansas Motorsports Person of the Year award.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do it can be a racer, it can be a fan, it can be
A business.
a business. We're just gonna pick out got a group of people that watch this on a regular basis, and they're gonna pick out and do a racing fan at the end of the season, you know.
Now,
Or racer or business.
you know, somebody that attributed a lot towards motorsports here in
Right.
Arkansas. Now, I did understand, to make it fair, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that you have pulled your name from
I pulled it out of there.
from the running
Yeah,
of that
there's no
award,
sense,
so-
no sense in having it
to
in.
make it fair.
Make it
So,
fair, yeah.
so Heath Tate has
mine
pulled his name from
Mine
the running.
and,
So.
Nick
Why'd you do
Lawrence's
that,
boat.
Heath?
I give you a champ shot, though.
And that award is gonna be presented by one of our sponsors, Chambers Bank.
Chambers Bank
So-
is they are gonna give that award for us, so.
So anyway, we look forward to seeing the results of that at the end of the 21 racing
Be
season.
interesting, because there's lots of great racers and lots of great fans and lots of great, people that support racing here in Arkansas, so
That'll be a good thing for
it'll
the
be a good
sport.
thing.
Well, as I said earlier, we're back in Mena, Arkansas this week, and we're here at the home base of Southwest EMS, and they're our host sponsor tonight here in Mena, and Robbie Hines, a longtime racer from the Mena area, runs that flagship operation, and we appreciate you having us tonight, and Shoptaw and Bruce Bush being on the show. Robbie, we'll just get started a little bit with you, like we do every week with everybody. How did Robbie Hines get started in dirt track racing?
I got started going with my buddies from here in Mena. There were several of them that decided they wanted to come up with a old dirt track car and go start down at Cove. We were talking about Cove earlier, old racetrack, long time ago. It's after of course, the track here in Mena, of course, but Cove was where we started in the late '80s, I would say. And I got to going, and I was the one that was always trying to be different, because I would run one of them 4-liter cars instead of I'd run a Ford. And so I spent a lot of time at the back until I finally realized what I needed to do and everything. Started out in stock cars, and then got into modifieds after a few years of doing that. And then but that was back in the late '80s. I was talking to my wife, trying to figure out, it was before I was married, when I had a few dollars before I started trying to chase the girls and everything. And
Cove was one of those fun tracks to run,
yes, it was.
especially coming out of turn 4, where, you know,
There was
the wall would come up close and in a hurry.
It was a really, really narrow
Yeah,
track.
yes,
We were
it
talking
was.
about that earlier.
Pretty
Really.
narrow.
I put my first car that I had, I put it on its top in the middle of 3 and 4 there.
Yeah.
The fence was really close to the back straightaway. And
Yes.
I was always worried that I was gonna flip it over and land on one of them fence posts, but I didn't. But, I caught the berm up there one night and going into 3 real hard and turned it over. And so, it was a little bitty track, but it's a lot of fun, that's where we all cut our teeth on getting into dirt track racing.
Turn 4 over there wasn't too far from the road.
No,
If you ran off turn 4, you could end up in the road.
that's right,
Wow.
It was probably only 20 or 30 feet.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
close.
It was really close. But,
When was probably the last year that they raced over there? You remember?
93, 4.
93 or
Yes.
4?
it's probably something like that. After Mount Ida got going, Cattle Gap got going down here, Diamond Park over by Murfreesboro, after those got going, then everybody ventured off and got to racing at those, and they were probably a little bit easier, plus there were more cars over there, and so you wanted to race against the most that you could, and back then paid better, everything. Wasn't paying much by today's standards, but you still, you did, did pretty good, going over there. Mount Ida, we'd get, in modifieds, there was nights you'd get $100 to start, and back in the early '90s, that's pretty good.
That was
for-
good.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
good payday.
Yeah.
And it's good money for today's
Today's
racing.
racing in a lot of places. I mean,
Yeah. So, but we did that, and I took a little bit of time off when after I got married and started having kids, had 2 girls, and then once they got up and got going a little bit, now they're my pit crew, and so racing modifieds, and that's, my wife is probably my #1 supporter. I'm like Joe Duvall. I don't run on the wife's credit card, but she pays for most all of it. I get a lot of good Christmas presents, and the last couple of years I've got race cars for Christmas, so I'm pretty proud of that.
that's kind of hard to beat that.
Yeah, that's right. I've got the pit jack that they come up with, electric scale, the radio or wireless scales and everything. I've got some pretty good stuff from that lady right there. So she's.
I understand that. I kind of got some birthday presents that were like that for racing stuff.
Mhm.
So
Christmas, birthday, everything, it's
Yeah.
always been pretty good. And this past year, I was teasing about, the better I do out there, then the better she likes it, and then the better the prizes are. So, so we've enjoyed that, and I've had a lot of fun. And, my oldest daughter, we get lots of looks. She's 23 now, but real pretty blonde-headed girl. When she crawls out from under the back of that race car changing the gears, there's a lot of them boys will turn their heads and everything. So
well, that's what I was
that's
fixing
a
to
lot
ask
of
you
fun.
with your girls. Did they ever think about getting into? I mean, they're pit crewing for you, but did they ever think about getting in a car and racing a little bit with you? Or?
I had a modified. It was an older one that I had got and fixed it a little bit and put a new body on it and all that. And my oldest girl got out in it, and she ran about 5 laps, and she got it up real high in the corner and hit the skidder tire and bent the rear end on the car, and she didn't want to get back in it.
No,
So,
after that.
and it was, so she decided that wasn't necessarily for her. I had them go-karts, and I wasn't smart enough mechanic for the go-karts, so that was my biggest problem on that. I could handle we could figure out ways to fix the race car, but I wasn't smart enough on making them go-karts go fast enough. We did buy a motor one night. My oldest girl was in the race as a claim, had a motor claim in go-karts. And she got out there and she come off the track. She was mad. She said, "Dad, let's just go buy their motor." So we went and bought a motor that night to see if we could run faster the next time. So though that was fun. And I've had a lot of good times with them. That's been, when they're there helping out, that's when it's been a really big time, everything. They're athletes, and so both of them playing ball, it's going from one sport to the next and everything. And even my wife, she loves athletics and everything, and playing ball, whatever it is. So we've spent a lot of times taking care of them.
Well, that's one of the things that we see a lot. Of course, we've seen it for years, but especially during the show, is the family involvement in the sport. And I just don't think that a lot of people outside of dirt track racing or drag racing or motorsports in general realize what a family sport that motorsports can be. So that's great that you have the family following that you have. So, but
Good time with it.
Yeah,
Good time.
yeah.
well, we'll move just across here just a little bit in the introductory phase here. We'll talk to the Mena transplant here of John Choctaw. And, John, I got acquainted with years ago up in Siloam Springs, Monette, Missouri area. And John, tell us about how you got started dirt track racing.
Well, it was all by accident, Bill.
Most of the time with you, it was an accident.
Y'all stop now. Y'all stop.
That was too easy.
Don't be quiet here. You need to jump in.
We haven't got started yet. Shut up.
We, me and the kid's mom, we ventured over to, and her sister, to Harbor Village up by Grand Lake. Have y'all ever been there?
No.
It's a real nice little place and stuff. We were coming back, and anyway, and of course I was always into drag racing and raced at Centerville years ago, like, drag racing. And had a GTO and the Demon and stuff. That was back in the early 80s. And anyway, but we were coming back from Harbor Village, and we heard an advertisement on the radio, Beaver Lake Speedway in Rogers, Arkansas. God, I'd not been to a dirt track race since I was 10, 11, 12 years old, when my dad used to drag me to Ozark Speedway in Joplin, Missouri, and 71 Speedway in Neosho, Missouri. And anyway, watched my hero growing up, Jack Bell. And I mean, random, you remember seeing pictures of Jack and stuff, old super modified and stuff. But anyway, I said, let's go to the stock car races. That'd be cool. We went, and I just knew right then, I said, I've got to get me one of these. We ended up getting this old bomber car out of Monette, Missouri. And the very first night out with it, I'm going to shorten this story. We were sitting there in the pits, and I ran second to B main. And anyway, I mean, all these big name late model guys were there at Beaver Lake, and Essery and Phillips and Bones and all of them, and just you could go on, and Bill Greek and I mean, it was guys that are, some are passed away now, God bless them, but we went out there and ran second to B main, and we come in, and we were getting the car all wound, we was just all pumped up. Bob Ashley, he running street stock then, super stock they called it up there. And he came over and he said, you need to get some of them 1-inch lug nuts and put on that right rear wheel. I said, that man don't know what he's talking about. We'll be all right. We got out there, and me and a guy by the name of Bill Gray worked our way all the way from the back. And we were running first and second, went flying off in turns 1 and 2 there at Beaver Lake, and I rolled it 3 times. And anyway, and they were trying to get me out of the car, my pant leg, because I just wore jeans, t-shirt, you know. And anyway, and I just had a helmet with a bubble face on it, you know. And it was really, I've got all these pictures at home, very crude. And they were trying to get me out of the car, my pant leg was caught over the clutch pedal down in there. And I said something about my leg being caught, and everybody started jumping, yanking, pulling on that car and stuff. And the kid's mom, Dixie, come running out there and she said, you know, we're not done racing. And I was back in 2 weeks. And that's how it took off. And I just kept moving up. And, you know, then we started racing at Razorback Speedway at Fayetteville. And then we ventured down to Crawford County. We never got a chance to go to the World 100, you know, that Bob Dean put on at Crawford County and stuff. But that's what I was working towards. And then I had the wild idea, and we were coming back from a skiing trip in 1989, and I said, let's get us a modified. And I used to curse these cars. I mean, they'd be out there at Razorback Speedway or wherever, Tri-State or wherever, and I said, oh, they'd just spin out and cause a caution, and cause another caution, and cause another caution. And we ended up getting one, and we were at the car show at the Northwest Arkansas Mall, and we were sitting there, and we had it all decked out in Popeye colors and everything. Allen Canning Company sponsored us, and that was very thankful to Allen Canning Company and Rick Allen and everything all the way back then. And Frank Foster walked up to me. He said, "What have you went and done?" He said. And I said, well, I thought I'd try my hand at these modifieds. He said, boy, you're going to get an education now, boy. And anyway, he just walked away. And anyway, so then it took off, and we got up in the mid-90s and 94, and we had a brand new dirt work car that we were doing really good. Scotty Drake and his dad was helping us out a bunch, and we were getting a lot of help out of Joplin, Missouri, and we ventured off and met the Mena bunch down here and raced at Mount Ida and Murfreesboro. Then it was called Orchard Park Speedway. And anyway, that's the story. Me and Robbie had a run in one night there. He probably don't remember it as well as I do.
Well, let's hear about that. See, these are the type of stories that we're looking for. On that.
And anyway, we were going, and I'd worked my way. I didn't run really good in the heat race, and I didn't really know what car Rob was in. You were running number 4, right? Wasn't your number 4 or something like that?
Later car was, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But anyway, and I kept following. Eddie Providence was right in front of me. He was running 3rd, and I was running 4th. And we come out of turn 2, and Eddie just. I didn't touch Eddie. Eddie, I didn't touch you, I promise, okay? and Eddie went off the back straightaway, and we come back around there, and they were trying to get us all lined back up. Well, they put Eddie back in front of me. And I said, I pulled up there to them guys that were running Orchard Park at the time, I don't know, and I said, I don't know how, I flipped my face shield up. I said, I don't know what's going on here, but this won't work. And so, anyway, they left him up there, and we were going around, they kept going around, and here comes this number 4 modified up there trying to pinch his way in front of me, and I was like, who is this? And
I don't know if this was me or not.
It might not have been you.
It might not have been me.
It might have, and I looked over at him, and I said, you need to go back behind me. And anyway, he never did, and he kept trying to pinch his way in front of me, you know, and I was like, dude. And I just slammed him under caution, you know. I've never done that before. And anyway, so we ended up finishing 4th that night, or 5th.
Robbie probably remembered that.
I would have remembered that.
Okay, oh, that wasn't you. All right, okay. I'm sorry. Well, we run 5th that night, and then we all come back. We followed them. We followed Robbie and Ronnie Wagner and Mike Wagner, and we all come back to Mena, and we stayed at the hotel south of town. Then the next night, on Saturday night, it was 4th of July at Special at Mount Ida. And Mike was winning it. Ronnie was running second, I was running third, and Troy Scheinberg, yeah, Troy, I mentioned you, there you go. He was running fourth, okay? And I was right behind Mike and Ronnie, and I mean, there was just sparks flying. Every time we go down, they just, you know, I said, this is not going to end well. And anyway, and I'm about 2 or 3 cars back. Finally, we took the white, we went into 1 and 2. Sure enough, they piled it up. I went low, Troy went high, and we shot down the back straightaway, and anyway, Troy got me, you know, he won it, and I ran second. And anyway, but that was one of our trips to down here. We had a really good time. I'm in Orville and Mike, we went to their shop, and after the Friday night, we worked on our car, and I mean, everybody was great. We loved it coming down here, you know. And so with that car, we moved on, and we were up at Joplin one night, or I took off by myself up to North Fork Speedway, and we've been running good up there. And it was just it was me and Little Beckham Jr. And anyway, and he was in a rental ride, a little blue number 14 modified, and the Felkers owned it. And it's a funny story, there was a kid back behind us that was well, I think we'd lapped him, and that was Jamie McMurray, you know. And anyway, and I didn't know there was a ride set up for me out of Kansas City, and actually it was Kansas City and Lebanon, it was asphalt ride and stuff. And but me and Beckham got battling, and we come off turn 4, and I got washed into the wall. It was just a racing incident, and that was the first bad crash. That was 360 feet down the front straightaway, and you know, and stuff. And they said there was cars that went underneath me, you know. So but yeah, it just, things kept going, and then the early 2000s, you know, and then you know, I mean, went to work for Rob and everything, got back into racing, and
Which was probably a mistake on Rob's part, I let
Let him go to work and race.
and anyway,
you know, so I mean.
Well, he I'll try to be quick about
no,
my
that's
story,
no,
quicker
no,
than
go
you.
ahead.
But we got to know each other from racing first.
Yeah.
But then he was working at Siloam Springs Fire Department and went to EMT school.
Paramedic.
Well, but
Oh yeah.
EMT first,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they were wanting to start a paramedic ambulance service. So I worked for a man that could
okay.
provide the paramedics up there, and these guys were going through school, and well, I didn't know that it was Choctaw until one day we were up there at the fire department visiting with them and everything, and got to meet him. Oh yeah, I know Choctaw from racing and stuff. So we visited there and everything. Well, then lost track of time, each other for a while, and I started the ambulance service, and I get a phone call, and it's Choctaw wanting to change, you know, locations and everything. So we needed help, and that's when he went to work for me. That's when the mistake made. No.
You must have needed help.
Bruce, how your racing career when you get started?
I got started in 1991, I guess it was. A friend of mine, we were kind of helping a little bit on a car over at Mount Ida, and it was a street stock car. And he was a good racer and everything, and one night he said, "You want to drive this thing in a mechanics race?" I was like, "Hey, that'd be pretty cool." So we got out there and
Where was this at?
at Mount Ida,
Oh, okay, sorry.
and we lined up there. I think we started second row. There was about 8 cars or something in the race, and we raced around there, and it was only an 8-lap race, and we raced around there about 3 laps, and I seen a hood fly off in the air, and I was like, oh my goodness, you know, it wasn't our hood, but somebody else's. Well, we dodged that. Ended up, when the race is over, we ended up winning the race. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever, you know. It was a lot of fun. And get into the pits, and the guy said, well, how much did you turn it? How much oil pressure? I don't have any idea. I was just trying to keep it on the track.
Never looked down none of that
Yeah, I
stuff.
never looked down at that. But that's how it all got started there. And then over the winter, me and a friend of mine, Joey Fryer, we decided we was gonna get us a car. And we went and got us an old car and gutted it, took it to the guy and he put a cage in it. We gathered up all our spare parts and just threw on this thing and made a car. And, we got it all done and it looked good. And we thought, you know, JB would help us a little bit. He'd tell us kind of, this is what you need to do. And he said, y'all are into drag racing. He said, you're just not really used to driving into the corner, I don't figure. He said, so what you need to do is drive it off into the corner, then count to 3, and then turn it. All right, so that's what we did. We raced down in there, we'd run it into the corner, and I mean, we was up against a wall, dragging the fence and everything.
I ain't hit 3 yet.
JB comes and he wants to look at our videotape, and he watches it, and he's like, oh man, I guess I need to take that out of there. I don't need to run it in there that far. So we finally did figure out how to drive the car, and it took us, I guess it was 10 nights before we ever even finished the feature. Without something falling off or breaking, tearing up, or, you know, getting in a wreck. But did that for a while, and then,
Was you working for JB at this time?
yeah, I was working for JB before that, you know. He would always give me hints and tell me what to do, and until you really realize it, you don't realize what you need to be doing. He's telling you, but it's just like going over your head. But did that for a while, and then we ended up getting that car figured out, and it was pretty good. We won a few races with it. Then we decided we were going to build a new car. Had a buddy of ours over in Idabel build us a car, and man, he said, we're going to make you a car that's really fast. Well, whatever. You know, we was thinking it can't be that much better. We just took everything out of the first one, put it in the second one. It was way faster. I mean, it was a really good car. He knew what to do to make it handle and everything, and it was a lot of fun. We ended up winning, I guess the first year or the second, no, I guess the first year we had that car, we won 22 out of 25 nights at Mena. And they kind of didn't really like all that, but we were trying to do the best we could do, you know?
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And then later on, after we raced at Mount Ida, we'd go to Nashville. We raced at Nashville a few times. Really liked that track. Raced at Thunder Mountain, did a lot of good there and had a lot of fun. And at Mount Ida, we met a bunch of people we used to race with, and we'd race with them, and they'd just pass us, and I was like, what the heck are they doing? We'd go home and watch the video. I'd always watch his car. He's driving up on the outside of me. When I'd go in the corner, and when I'd come off, he would drive right by me. It's like, wow, I see what he's doing. It was Jerry Porter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the Jerry move.
Yeah.
After I saw that, I was like, man, that's what he's doing. So, being us and the Porter bunch, we were all good buddies. Still are. But we learned a lot from them. And then they talked us into going to Batesville and race. Now, if you've ever been to any track in the world, and when you go to Batesville, you can throw all that stuff out the window.
Every bit of it.
Every bit of it.
Because that track is the hardest track I've ever raced on, the hardest competition I ever raced with, and it's just the hardest racing in general I've ever done in my life. You know, and we raced with all them people, and we did pretty good at times, but it was just a good thing if you could just make the field.
Right.
You know, the big race. Because we only race there twice a year. In March, they had like a 2,500 to win. And in September, had 10,000 to win. You know, and it was.
You know,
it's
just one
tough
of those
racing.
deal, the best of the best show up for those.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
Everybody's fast there.
and everybody's fast.
We'd ran third one time in the spring race, and we ran fifth at the 10,000 race one time. That's the best we ever did there.
That's good.
And at one point, trying to remember what year it was when we had our strut car, I guess. There was like 88 cars or 90 cars there, and we ended up timing in first, or timing in quick on the timing night.
Right.
That was unbelievable, but that was good. And then, you know, did
It's
all
a
that.
fast track too.
Yeah. And we raced at Tri-State some, won a couple of good races there. You know, it's just kind of all started with us, how we kind of went and did.
I want to ask him a question.
Go ahead.
So if I remember right, when you and Joey first got started,
Mhm.
y'all would kind of, one of you race one weekend, one of you
Yeah.
drive the other
Yeah,
weekend.
that's true.
So how did it come out? Because
Well,
after a while, it was just you driving.
yeah, it started out, you know, we
I wanna
raced
hear
that
this
way.
story.
He would race one week, and then I would race next week. You know, every week we were trying something different on the car.
Joy watching.
Yeah.
Okay,
We were
alright.
we're trying to do everything, you know. He would race, and then I would race, but we would try different things on the car, and we'd call it the penalty box. You know, we would try something new on there. Well, finally we got it where it was good, and Joey was really good when the track was wet and muddy, and I was better when it was slick. Well, later on in the year, they told us, you can't have two drivers. You can only have one. And Joey said, well, he said, I really don't like driving when it's slick. And he always kind of got sick at his stomach, you know, before the race he'd get nervous, and I didn't let anything bother me. I just put me in there, let's go.
I
And,
still get that way myself, but
it didn't ever bother me. And that's how it ended up.
You just need to sit in the car longer.
yeah, like you. No,
That's how we did it.
I couldn't remember. I remember y'all being that way, or
Yeah.
you know that's the way it was. But I couldn't remember. If
Yeah, because it was
that
both of our car, you know.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was just,
Oh, Joey's one of the best. Well, them two are. You can't find better mechanics on the car. That just
Joey
them two-
carburetor, Bruce engine.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we always had a good group. I mean, we did our own rear ends, we did our own axles, did transmissions, carburetors. Joey was a master at them, and we did our own engines together. We did, you know, back in those days, everybody did everything.
Right.
Now people order it, you know.
Now, before you were in stock car racing, I remember you as a drag racer.
Yeah. Yep, I had a drag car and a race at Centerville, and I always tore up something. But I had a good time doing it. But until I drove that car that night in the mechanics race, that was it. I was hooked.
So once you got in the dirt car,
Yeah.
that's what made you make the transition over
Mhm.
to the
Yeah.
dirt car.
Plus, whenever I was a kid, my dad and my uncle had a '57 Chevrolet that they raced, you know, together. And I used to go to the races with them, and that was a lot of fun. I was like 5, 6 years old, something like that. But that was always fun.
Was it always a full body car? Did you ever venture off and try to modify
I
it?
never
or-
drove anything but a street stock. You know, the street stocks at Mount Ida, they call them street stocks, and then the street stocks at Batesville, they call them street stocks too, but they were two totally different
Totally,
cars.
yeah.
But yeah, I never had anything but a full body car.
What, you know, we were we were here in Mena last week talking with JB and Jeff, but Mena has always seemed to be such a hub for racing. You know,
Yeah.
even
You're right.
outside of, you know, of what Brodex has done down here. What is it that y'all think the community, what is it that makes it thrive towards motorsports? I mean, a lot of great stock car drivers down here, a lot of great drag racers down here. What is it, what's in the water down here?
There ain't nothing else to do. I mean, you gotta have something to do.
it is definitely a car town. I mean,
Yeah.
I've only been here 13 years, and I mean, it's there's a lot of good race car drivers here. There's a lot of good, you know, I mean, there's place that's on 375. We closed down.
Street and performance.
Yeah, Street Performance.
Yeah.
Street Performance used to be
Yeah.
here. Brodex was here.
Mhm.
The place in Hatfield that the guy that rebuilds hot rods there. What's him? What's his
Yeah, I
name?
can't think of his name.
Yeah. He bought some stuff. out
There's
there.
a lot of different
Yeah,
places
there's
around.
a lot of
Yeah, there
places.
is.
Yeah, car
Yeah.
places. You got repops. That,
Mhm.
You know, so I mean, it's just really there is. I mean, and it's. I mean, we always talk about Mena's. I mean, everything's an hour and a half away. Well,
Except storms, they show up here in a hurry.
they sure
Yeah,
do.
you're right.
They sure do. And
We know if y'all are gonna get hit by a storm, it's coming to us
Yeah, it's gonna
next.
come to us.
Mhm. You're right.
that
We just watched to see where Jim Cantori is.
there's racetracks. I mean, You know, you can go to Texas, you can go to Oklahoma, throughout Arkansas, you know. I mean, it's,
But I mean, there has always been, and, you know, in all forms of motorsports, good drivers that come out of Mena, Arkansas.
Yeah, you're right, there's been several.
You know, like I said, if you.
Bruce's
you know,
son, Brad's coming
Yeah,
up.
yeah, you were at the drag strip, I mean, there's, you know, a number of people out of Mena, or if you're at the dirt track, you know,
Yeah.
you're gonna find people from Mena, Arkansas. I just think it's a great compliment, not only to the town of Mena, but also motorsports in Arkansas as well. But, so Robbie, what are you, as far as, we'll get into this just a little earlier than what we normally do, but, the upcoming race season, what do you see
Well,
going on this year?
if, with COVID happening and everything taking a hit last year, I think everything's gonna open back up. I mean, we're already seeing a lot of that, everything. We've been running, USRA modifieds, so we still plan to continue that because that's pretty much the closest thing, except for the fact that Diamond Park has got a IMCA sanction now. We just had geared everything towards running USRA, so that's where I'm headed as far as that goes. Got several guys, I mean, you think about my friends that I grew up with and got started racing with, well, now it's my brother and a couple other guys that we race with up at Tri-State. So, but we've been all over. I mean, we've been down into Texas to race before. We've been down at New Boston. They run more of an outlaw races at times and everything. But I mean, I think that still, when you look at the way the world has been, racing has even been able to prevail or stay steady with it. A lot of the tracks were closed down for a little while, but they're still able to open back up because it's an outdoor sport. You can separate, you know, just traditionally. I don't like to be that close to some guys, so I'm gonna be away from them a little bit. So I take it a little bit that we're gonna be able to go to that and enjoy that sort of stuff. So I think it's still, you know, the future of it is good, and this year's gonna be pretty good, so.
You know, and I'm not so sure that, you know, motorsports as a whole, in some ways, didn't benefit, you know, from all the shutdowns, you know, and everything, because, like you said, it was an outdoor sport. It gave people another avenue to go and do that probably normally wouldn't have went out and
we've
and
talked to-
saw a
we've
drag
talked
race
to-
or a dirt track show.
Others, you know, that said, you know, in our trial that winter racing, it wouldn't normally have winter racing because they could go watch, and now they've become a race fan because of. And so, you know, in a roundabout way, it may have helped racing out, so.
Now, Bruce, your son Bradley, y'all for the last couple of years, y'all been making the long pull over Little Rock just about every week to run IMCA modified. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, a few years back, we got a factory stock. We raced it just a few times, and Brad decided that he wanted to get it modified. I didn't know anything about modified. He's like, let's get one of them. It's all right. So we sold off all that stuff, and we pooled our money together and got us a modified. Built him an engine. I said, let's go try it. He wanted to try it at I-30. I said, okay. I'd never raced there a bit. I'd watched a few races there, but never raced there one time. And he went over and raced, tried to get some of the stuff figured out. He was doing pretty good at it, and just kept learning every week, and he ended up winning a feature, I guess the first year that he raced over there. And if you've ever been to I-30, that's not the easiest place to win.
No.
And he races like almost opposite of me. He likes to stick it up by the wall, and then he can drive it up there, and he can drive it on the outside. I always want to stay on the bottom and down low where it's a little safer. But he'd put it on the outside, and he always did really good. He made a lot of good nights, did real good there.
Bruce sat there and he said, you know, they got into the, back away from the factory stock and into the modified and sold all his stuff. And I had reminded him,
And
a
you
little
found a
bit-
fool to buy it.
Yeah, a little bit about it was
Yeah.
because,
That was a good car.
me,
It was a good
Yeah.
call.
I didn't mean that, I was,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no.
You
Char-
won some races.
Charlie
down in
Lawrence,
Murfreesboro with
Nick
that car,
Lawrence,
No.
we'd been racing modifieds
Yeah.
all them years and went from the modified
Yeah,
the opposite way, back to
Yeah.
the factory stock, cause back where we were running at Centerville, factory stocks were, well, they was picking up, gaining speed, there was lots of races and lots of money in the factory
yeah,
stock,
there's
where
a lot of
where
them.
where the modifieds, it kinda went away a little bit.
And I didn't mean that you found a fool to buy your car, I'm just saying a fool bought it.
And we come down and Nick Lawrence and Charlie, and they got a factory stock off Bruce.
Mhm.
Oh.
That's where
oh,
that's where the factory stock went to, was back to Yale County, where we were at.
And I wouldn't include
And,
Charlie and Nick in the fool part, but,
I
Yeah.
wondered
Is that the
where
one
they
that-
went.
Is that
Yeah.
the one that Nick crashed on the front straightaway? That
He
night?
never raced it.
No,
Oh,
we
oh.
end up,
He took it home, took it all apart.
yeah, took it apart and we end up, selling the car and kept the motor
Mhm.
and, building another factory stock.
There was probably more in that motor than there was in
There
that whole
was.
car.
Probably interested in the motor more than the car, probably.
Yeah, probably so.
I've got a question about.
There's a lot of time in it.
Yeah.
And Bruce is gonna be the one to ask this. And being that you're in the modified racing, tell us about running the open motor kinda in the IMCA's against the crate that is so popular these days.
Well, there's goods and bads. When the track was tacky, the open motor was great. And it just took a lot more finesse to drive it because you had a lot more power and it was a lot more throttle response and you'd spin the tires. But he ended up figuring out how to drive it a lot better than a lot of them did with the open. But the crate, I really think that the crate is better because you got aluminum heads, a lot lighter, and everything isn't rolling over as much in the corner. A lot more control on the front end, and the open motors, you gotta run cast iron heads. But all in all, I thought he did really good with the open motor, but the crate, on a lot of tracks, I think is probably a better thing to have. It's kinda like it limits you from spinning the tires, and it's a lot less power, it's quick, but,
He put together a good one for me in 2016.
yeah,
I didn't get to run it but a handful of nights, but the
Yeah.
first couple nights.
the first night you ran, you scared me to death.
You mean when I went down to Texas? Oh, no.
You got it in there, we fired it up on a Saturday, you said, I'm gonna go race in Texas.
Yeah, that's right.
And the next
That's
day
how
I
he
s-
is.
I said, tell me how it went. Well, the next day he called me and he said, yeah, it ran really good, but he said, man, I was racing along there and all of a sudden my feet were getting wet. So what was the deal? He said, the oil pressure
Oh, yeah,
fitting, he said, came loose and was blowing oil all over my feet. So I'm thinking, how long did you race? Well, it's about 4 laps to the end. Great. Ran it out of oil. It didn't hurt anything.
No, it didn't hurt. Then we had the
That's
big,
what you don't want to hear when you just help somebody build the engine.
then we had that big race over at Shinoba, and ran good there, and then took it to Boone,
Yeah, you did race it at Boone. didn't you?
yeah, won that. Yeah, it was only B main, but we didn't cross the finish
Is
line.
The B main at 5:53 in the morning
Oh, my.
from the day before. We had raced 12. I went on the track to hot lap at noon
Yeah,
or was it 5? I
I
don't remember.
I
We
remember.
raced for nearly a
I was
full
drinking a lot
24
of
hours.
Oh, my goodness.
After the races, I'm sure you were, but,
Yeah.
no, I talking about going to I-30 and racing and stuff. Now, that's a tough place.
It is.
I
Oh,
mean,
it really
back, and I raced back in the 90s there against Charlie Armstrong, Rocky Armstrong. The Wagners from over here would go over there. And I can remember there was the best story I've got about I-30 is, we all went over there, and I was always able to make the race. So I may have to go through the B and get into the race, but I was always able to make the race. Well, got into the race and everything, and I'm just, biding my time. I think I finished top 10, which I always enjoyed going over there. I loved I-30. That night, Ronnie Wagner finished second, and that was back when the claiming the motors was big and everything. They claimed his motor, and he had borrowed that motor from his uncle Orville, and so then he had to come up with. He finished second in the race, got paid for that, got the money for the claim and everything. But then he had to figure out how to pay his uncle back for the motor and everything that he got claimed. But that was just, we always had big time going over to I-30, and you talk about the guys from Mena and everything, and there's always been a good showing and everything. Bradley did real good over there and stuff.
He
And
really
the guys
good, yeah.
that
Just to hop in a modified and start racing.
Yeah.
we've always had good luck over there at that racetrack and stuff. And I was looking forward to it. Last year, I guess, no, 2 years ago, I was looking forward to racing over there in my new car. And then where we race at Tri-State, they opened back up, and we just decided
Drew
to
sure
go
is
back.
fast there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie's boy Drew Armstrong.
Yeah.
They're always fast there, Drew.
John, what's some of your more memorable races? I mean, obviously, we all have memorable races about you, but from yourself, what were some of the highlights of yours?
Oh, I can think of like a couple of street stock races at Razorback Speedway back in the late '80s. Good friend of mine, well, longtime racing acquaintance, lives up in Rogers, Arkansas, and he's probably watching this right now. Ronnie Hook, and he was a pretty hot shoe up in Northwest Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get a chance to interview Ronnie, go up there and talk to him. He was a hot shoe up there. And this goes all the way back like to '84, '85, and he was the one to out, you had to outrun him and so finally there was a couple of nights we were able to outrun him at Razorback Speedway. That was real memorable. And when West Siloam opened up in 1987, we won the first 2 street stock features there, 2 super stock features there right in a row, and then we decided to climb off into a modified. It took a while to start, because we found out real fast that this wasn't street stock racing no more. We had less motor, but it seemed like everybody was faster, lighter cars, and
Is that the reason you would sit in the car? I had to bring that up.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've got a lot of things. There's the list of people for me to thank over the years: Bill, yourself, Robbie, Bruce. The list goes on, and I've raced against a lot of great race car drivers, and I've learned a lot from them. Shared memories and moments and stuff. But there was, from my street stock days all the way up into my modified days. There was some feature wins, a lot of heat race wins, a lot of top 5s, and 2 or 3 bad crashes mixed in there. That last trip to Boone, Iowa in 2017, we would have never made it if it wasn't for Robbie. And Troy Scheiberg, told us about a Shaw car down in Tyler, Texas. Never laid eyes on it. It looked pretty rough when we brought it home, and that car turned out to be pretty fast. And so
Shoprag would sit in the car because he'd have to remember which way to put the shifter to go forward or reverse.
Yeah.
Was the
I mean,
biggest thing.
Looks
Of
like
course.
he just put a note on there like forward.
Yeah.
For a little
I don't think he
arrow.
can read is the problem. I think he gets.
and he would though. Pulled up there and sat in it for 15 or 20 minutes.
you know, you'd be working on the car after he come in, and you'd be looking around like, where's John? You
Well-
know? And you look over at the concession stand, he's not over there, you know. And then finally one night, I just glanced right, and he's sitting in the car.
Yeah.
You know.
And
I remember you kept after me about more gear, more gear.
you know, it's kind of funny though, because it wasn't just us that had noticed that back in the day. You know, even Robbie noticed that later on.
I
mean,
didn't,
you know,
yeah, I did.
What'd
I
you
just
say?
saw it.
You know, I wasn't right beside you, just a little ways down from you, but
You're pretty close. Pretty
Yeah.
close, yeah, yeah.
we were pitted just a little bit further down. But
Yeah.
you know, he would. He'd
I-
sat in the car.
I just always,
But I figured out later on that it wasn't a bad deal. If you got other people that'll work on it, just sit there.
We were in Boone, and we wondered where he was, cause it was fixing to be time. Well, you look around and he was already in the car, but I mean, it's probably still about 20 minutes and everything. And I just thought that was just like, because it was Boone or something, you know? And, but now to hear the story that's just him.
A good friend that we made, and I made, and he's a pretty hot shoe up in northern Kansas, Jordy Nelson. And anyway, Jordy watched and say, hey, but Josh Bloomer and stuff, and good friends and stuff. But Jordy would come walking over, and I'd be sitting there just have a straight. They wouldn't be tight, but they'd be snug. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, just comfortable here."
Hey, I'm gonna tell something on him. You know, we joke about you and getting in the car and all that, and I don't know if he's ever told you the story, but I think it was Shop Talk's car.
that I got trapped.
It was down in the shop one day,
Yeah.
and you wasn't there,
Oh,
but he crawled in the car.
yeah. Your brother was telling me this.
He crawled in the car and was working on it or doing something, and realized that how hard it was crawling in and out of that modified. You know, that's all I'm gonna say, is how hard it was crawling in and out of that modified.
It was after business hours, and I was doing some work on John's car there at our old shop just east of town. And I got in there doing something and was up under the dash. And it got turned around and had got rolled up in a ball, and I couldn't get out. Well, I mean, I tried for 30 minutes, and I got in there and got jammed up in there, and I couldn't get out. Well, right where the shop was, the cell phone service kind of ended right there.
It did.
And of course, there was no way I can get out to a regular phone. And I just happened to have my cell phone in my pocket, and I finally got it out, and there was like one bar. And I called my brother Jeff. And I said, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm busy." And I said, "Well, I don't care that you're busy, but you got to come down here to the shop." And he goes, "I don't have time." I said, "You don't understand. I'm trapped in Shop Tall's car and can't get out." And finally, about 10 minutes later, he drove up, and he was a little agitated until he found out the predicament that I was in. But I don't know how I was wrong, but I could not get out.
So anyway, John, he couldn't get out of your car either.
Which I
That's
figured
what
out.
I'm saying. So.
Which I figured out why Shop Tall never got out of the car. Because
I'll say this about modifieds. Back when I started, they were the little bitty, if you see pictures of them, the modifieds, IMCA cars were smaller, you know, bigger openings and all of that and stuff. And I guess that's because back then maybe the guys were bigger, I don't know. But as they got progressed and these new 4-bar cars and more cars got bigger and everything, well, then younger kids got to driving them. And I always wondered why we'd go to a racetrack and we'd always get hit. I kid you not, we'd get hit by the youngest drivers there. And I'm probably not the best driver, but I still wasn't running over people like it seemed like that. Well, I got a new car one time, and I got down in that car, and I realized then why I was always getting hit. You can't see out of them. You just you could see the front tires out there on these cars, and you can't see the tires. You just know the steering wheel's gonna be straight when it's like this. And if I'm, you know, half sideways, I need to know how much input to put in the car and everything. But I don't think the way the younger kids are starting, I think that's the only drawback that I see, is that they can't see over the dash. Now, they're safe. I mean, you know, I won't take that away. They're safe, but it just, sometimes you wonder if, and I'm not trying to knock young kids and everything. It just, that's what I thought, well, that's why, because
I know
they probably couldn't see out of the car.
I know the latter few years, I mean, the first 3 or 4 races, you know, we get home and the next day I'd just be black and blue over here. I mean, just,
Yeah,
I mean,
the car's changed
yeah.
a ton.
Yeah.
But you know, you're
Put
talking
on
about
weight too, he's up against
That's
the
true.
bodies.
Yeah, I figured
That's
that out
that's
too.
how you get rid of the Thanksgiving and Christmas, you get rid of that in March and April.
Talking about how the bodies have changed, I remember the first IMCA modifieds I ever seen were from Muskogee, Oklahoma. And this was in about, I'm gonna guess, 85, 86. And there wasn't that many, there might have been 6 or 7. And some of them had Vega bodies.
Gremlins,
Gremlin, yeah, and it was the old, you know,
Right.
and I never will forget, I was kind of interested in that deal, and there was a car builder down at Little Rock who's passed on by the name of Mike Morrow. And Mike was good about giving me advice and what have you, and I was down at Mike's shop one day, and I said, Mike, I've seen this thing, and, you know, Mike, he sat there and listened to me a minute, he said, Billy, said, you don't want to get messed up in that, he said, that's never gonna last. And that was the worst advice Mike Morrow ever gave me, but,
I remember all the way back in the mid-80s, we went up to, and it's still, I don't know if it still has that reputation, so I don't wanna say nothing bad about Nevada Speedway up in Nevada, Missouri, but, I mean, back at one time, I mean, you didn't go to Nevada with that, when you left there, if half your race car wasn't in the back of your truck, you didn't, I mean, it was, and, but we'd go up there 2 or 3 times, and there in the mid to late 80s there, and the Pinos, they didn't have enough IMC modifieds, so they were just making them run with the street stocks, and it was quite different. There was kind of,
I know Shop Tall's not, he's kind of like the rest of us, he's probably hung it up. I don't know that he's gonna crawl back in a modified here anytime soon.
unless I get a ride.
But that's what I was hitting at, that's what I was hitting at. But what, and we know Robbie's still driving, but, and Bradley's, you're helping Bradley out a lot, but are you just plumb quit, or are you?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty much
what's-
plumb quit. I would
So,
love to try it again, but I had some back surgery this last year, and I don't know that I should.
okay,
But I've not always done everything that I should do.
I understand that too.
If I had something I could drive, I'd probably go try it.
Have you ever thought about getting in Bradley's car?
Well, he's told me I could drive it before, but his seat's this way, and mine needs to be this way.
Right.
I got a porta power. I got one wide enough for my butt,
Been
but
there, done that.
I spread
And
it
I
out.
had to
everywhere.
go on the night where you had to take the roof off, you know, you're talking about. getting
Oh,
out.
yeah, topless,
Yeah,
topless.
it would be it'd be hard to get in and out of it, but
I never did like
I've never
running
drove a
topless,
modified.
you know. Wayne had a couple topless modified races. I think we pulled the tops off. It just seemed like it just changed the whole characteristics of the race car, you know, so.
That's because you couldn't say it in high.
It was
you know,
easy.
but you know, in the shop sells defense, he always got a lot of work done out of other people by doing that. But no, it was, you know, we kid John a lot, but it was good times.
It was. We enjoyed, I mean, we were close to home, and when, you know, Wayne started running modifieds over there and everything, and, you know, made a lot of great friends, you know, and stuff. And, you know, Johnny Thacker, us, we all kind of big fans, you know. We kind of always protected each other out there, you know, so then there was some heated races that went on at Centerville, you know, and but we had some good car counts at times,
Yeah.
you know, so,
What
I
y'all,
gotta watch what I say here. So,
y'all have been around obviously racing for a long time. And what do y'all what do y'all see that motorsports world needs to do to get more people involved? What are y'all's ideas?
If you had a way to make it where it was more affordable,
That's,
but I don't know how you do that.
we've asked that question.
I've asked-
And we've said the same thing a bunch of times now. What do we do to make it more affordable, to get younger kids to get started? Because, you know, this day and time, most of them can't, you know, there's probably lots of kids out there that wanna race or get into it, but it's hard to jump into a $50,000 car.
But you look at just what we were looking at earlier with Bristol, they've got the 602 crates,
Right.
late models, they got 604 crate late models,
Right.
and then they got the same in modifieds and everything.
Right.
I think that that's the biggest thing, and I've wanted to drive a late model, but, but I'd like to have one, because the car looks the same, whether, I mean, it may not go as fast, and it may not do everything. You gotta make it do more stuff, but that's where you gotta have the right mechanic or pick, crew chief to help you and stuff. But you can have just as much fun with that 602 motor as you can with the full-blown, now, I understand speed and everything, and I know about going faster and everything, but it's gonna get those younger people involved more, or, more people involved and everything. And another thing that I was gonna say this about the show, the show has to be quicker. You
Right.
can't have a show that lasts, after midnight, 11 o'clock is the latest, I would say. 10 o'clock, if you can get it done, start at 7 and be done by 10, and that, you kinda gotta cut back on the number, or the, classes of cars and everything, so, that gets more
We've
people
talked
coming.
about that, you get more people there, because, after 2.5 hours or so, people are starting to get ready to.
I think another thing too, and it's something that I think we've all tried at some point. I mean, and I know some car builders that do this, and then there's some car builders and upper race teams that won't do it. Is we need to pay attention to these guys that are in the Hornets and the mini stocks and the Bombers, and if we can go over there and pull up a chair and talk to them for a minute,
Right.
and encourage them, and everything, and help them out with setup, or I mean, don't, you know what I'm saying?
We've got an article that come out today on the magazine on the website, and one of the things that we've learned to talking to people, especially new racers get sport, the talent pool, especially here in Arkansas, just kind of some quotes from the article. I mean, it's deep. I mean, it's a stiff learning curve to get to you guys' level of racing, and I'm using you three as an example. And you take somebody new getting into the sport, and they have to go out there and race against you guys every night. It's pretty intimidating and gets frustrating, and
Right.
I think causes a lot of new people to quit,
Exactly.
or maybe not even jump into the sport.
Right.
Because, whether it be stock car racing or drag racing, just to know that you're gonna go out there for a long time with a long learning curve and get beat up on, most people are not gonna stay interested that long.
I think just a little encouragement from the top, trickle it down, I think will help keep them people around, and the longer they stay around, they will find a way.
Right.
They will find a way to keep growing and keep moving up and increasing their talent. And anyway, so that's just thought I had, because I've heard you ask this question every week, and I sit there and really thought about that, so, and like Robbie said, it's like, one of the things is to, and there would be no way I would try to promote a track. My hat's off to every promoter in the country.
Yeah, it'd be a tough job.
Yeah, it is a tough job, because, because we all, as racers and even fans, we want the program shortened down, but, they have to have that car count, and then people in the seats in the stands to pay the bills, electric bill.
Right.
water bill, everything, you know, and concessions, and my hat's off to them. So, I think all promoters and track owners should be supported, you know, and support the local tracks. We always tried to support tracks everywhere we went, you know, I mean, we went a lot of places, so.
Could we, is there an idea out there to develop some type of class that maybe most tracks could adopt, that maybe just didn't break the bank? Because, you know, we were talking, Robbie was talking about speed there a minute ago, and one of the things that we've learned a lot, and just away from the show, is also talking to a lot of race fans. You know, the speed doesn't necessarily excite them. It's the close, they
Right,
want
it's
close
close
racing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know, if you know, and that's one thing that's really surprised us, because like I said, workplaces, you know, and we're talking, so we ask a million questions. And that was the speed wasn't really that big a deal. But it was the close racing and seeing drivers drive up through the field.
right.
But is there the possibilities that you think, I know what the answer to this is before I ask it, because I know how promoters all get along, but do we not need to develop some type of class that is an economy class that most tracks have, to get people started, that's economically feasible for just about anybody that wants to race?
Oh, yeah, that's,
I think
needs to
there's-
be done everywhere. but-
I think there's gonna have to be a way to somehow, think about this for a minute, y'all. There's got to be some way to start introducing these new late model engines that are coming out, I mean, that are in the, you know,
Like the LS.
yes, or even the you know, the engines that are in our pickups out there. I
Mhm.
mean, you know, there's got to be some way that these engines can be introduced. I mean, because,
It'll happen before too long,
because
I'm sure.
the days of the 350s and the 400s, I mean, unless it's aftermarket blocks, I mean, they're going to get less and less and less and harder and harder and harder to come by. And the people that do have these blocks that are sitting in their shops, I mean, they want them mint for. And it's,
And I guess the point I'm trying to make, and Heath will back me up on this, because, you know, there's very few times a week goes by that we don't have a father show up with his son at our office, wanting to go racing, and by the time we sit there and talk about what it's gonna cost them, they're moving on to something else. I mean, just to
yeah,
get started.
it's tough.
And it's, you know, so we've gotta come up with something,
Well,
racing does.
You can think about it like whenever we all started, you could go out and get a car, knock the windows out, do your own work, put your own engine, you know what I'm saying? Now, you can't hardly find a lot of the cars, and all the parts and stuff you have to just pretty much buy, because so many cars have been crushed and all that's just gone.
I think that, I mean, and I hate to point always towards modifieds, because that's what I've been in, but there is so much, and we see that here in Mena. I mean, I can think of nearly 10 guys just here in Mena that have the old modifieds that have, you know, they were top of the line cars back 10, 15 years ago, but if you did that and controlled and you gotta have the right tire and control the motor somehow. But like John said, if there's ways that you can take, I mean, I'm running the 525 in my modified. So that electronics to run those later model motors, there's that ability and everything. It's getting out there. If they can just get that going, where maybe you could get a pickup motor, the newer stuff, but you're gonna have to put a carburetor on, you know, an intake and a carburetor on it. There's that stuff out there, but it's not as plentiful yet. You still gotta, but like the 602s and stuff like that are pretty available, so.
I think they ran things, I seen where they actually was running out of 604s.
Yeah, I think there's some kind of backup deal on it, I don't know what the deal is, it's some kind of problem with production of them, I guess.
there's a lot of good race cars out there still, a lot of good drivers, you know, so, you know, we got friends in Oklahoma and Texas, Missouri, you know, they're all fast. I watched a little bit of that stuff over in Oklahoma last weekend. The guys are fast.
Well, guys, our program director back there, Aaron Gilkey, he's slapping the old wristwatch back there. So, generally means we're on time or out of time, but anyway, it's been a pleasure and a fun time tonight.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Because, you know, we known y'all for a long time, and it's a pleasure to sit down and get to talk to y'all tonight.
That Bobby Hopper tunnel story was good.
Yeah. But we'll have that on the show next time.
Okay.
All right, Heath, where are we going next week?
Next week, we're gonna be in Van Buren. We're gonna go be with Jim Philpott, Philpott, and
Andy Milliken.
Andy Milliken, and Dennis Schoenfield.
And maybe,
And maybe,
and
if
we're
they can
working
talk,
on this,
if they can talk Bill Dillard into showing up, then
he'll be there
he'll
as
be
well.
there as well.
I've raced with most of that bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asked Dennis about blowing up my 525 on his chassis dyno.
We'll do that. Well, anyway, we want to thank again our sponsors tonight, along with these guys for being on the show. We want to thank Chambers Bank with 26 locations in Arkansas, one right here in Mena, Arkansas. We also want to thank KR Performance Fuels, Kevin Rogers. We want to thank True Grid Auction Service up in Gardendale, Arkansas, Arkansas's #1 online auction service. We want to thank Shaw Race Cars in Batesville, Arkansas. And also we want to thank our new sponsor that came on board this week, Skyway Buick GMC in Joplin, Missouri. Big shout out to 4Play Speed Shop in Plummerville, and also Weston Petroleum. So for our co-host Heath Tate, Bruce Bush, John Shoptaw, and Robbie Hines, and also want to thank our host sponsor tonight, Southwest EMS. I'm Bill Gilkey for Tuesday Night Tune-Up and Arkansas Motorsports Magazine, and we'll see you back next week from Van Buren, Arkansas.